That's the end of this. One second. Okay. Okay, we'll start now. Okay. HaMitzvos Kufayin Dal HaMitzvos Arba V'Shiva Mumeya. He shetzivonu lishmoya. It's not physical hearing, but it means to acquiesce, and that's why Kapach translated hishoma, even though he probably translated lishmoa, even tivim, because the Ram does the same thing in the Mina Kotze. Is lishmoa mikol Beis Din HaGadol. Then here is interesting. It says Beis Din HaGadol. Okay, so it's very clear that the Mitzvas Aseh is on Beis Din HaGadol. Okay, and that's also in the Mina Kotza, Lishmoa Mikol Beis Din HaGadol. But however, if you look in the Lav of Leisosu, the Pash the Ramam is that it's Lav B'dafka Beis Din HaGadol, but it's on the Matiki Ashmur. Any group that represents the Messiah, there could be a Lav of Leisosu. We'll see about that.
They send you a Zoom link, Lynn? On your WhatsApp? Okay, fine.
The Rambam Elois Aseh Shinud Beis says he shizonu mechaloik abale hakabala. He changed the lashon in Minyan HaMitzvos. He shetzivon his hilnu mechalok abale hakabala alayim hashalom. And Minyan HaKotze we just read is the Aseh is on Beis Din HaGadol. As he says, Lishmo mikol Beis Din HaGadol she'amdu hem Yisrael shene'emar al mishpat asher yomu lecho. But the Ashora, he says, is Hamro, and he says Beis Din Stam. Shelo lahamreis al pi Beis Din. Leisosum adova. That might be very similar to what he says here in Sefer HaMitzvos, that the lav might not be dafkan Beis Din HaGadol, but any Beis Din that represents the Messiah. Okay. Now, I just making a comment that we should begin to think about things, okay? And the comment will be meaningful later, but you see it over here. The stress of Hamra in the Lav would indicate something about Zokim Mamre. A priori, we don't see a relationship between the Aseh and Zokim Mamre, and we'll think about this a little bit later, but he seems there are two differences over here between the Aseh and the Lav. One is that the Aseh is on the Balei HaKabbalah, and is on Beis Din HaGadol, and the Lav is on Balei HaKabbalah, and the Aseh is just Pashut listening, whereas the Lav is Hamra. Once the Lav is Hamra, and the Aseh might not be Hamra, then we don't not clear there's a relationship between the Aseh and Zokim Mamre. We don't know. I don't recall someone say that the Zokim Mamre, they only talk about the Lav. And we'll see about this more in Mitzvah. But I just want to show you something interesting. When you read the Akdama to Mishnah Torah, there's something that you might not have noticed, but in retrospect, with the tidbits that we have now, it's very interesting. The Rambam in the Akdama to Mishnah Torah talks about the efficacy of the memories of the Talmud Bavli, the Shnei Talmudim. And when he talks over there, he only mentions the Lav. He doesn't mention Aseh. Let me read it to you. And I'll just explain to you why. Because Ravina Ravashi, they represent the Messiah, the 40th link in the Messiah for Moshe Rabbeinu. But there's no relationship of them at all to being Beis Din HaGadol. They're not Beis Din HaGadol. So therefore, in the approach that he has, both in Sefer HaMitzvos and in the Minyan HaKotzer, you understand that there might be a loisasur in Ravina Ravashi, but there's no Aseh. And it's exactly what you expect in the Hakadama to Mishnah Torah. He says it like this. He doesn't have the Aseh al pi HaTorah she'yerucha. Because Ravina Ravashi were Baalei Kabbalah, and they are Beis Din Baalei Kabbalah, so it could be a lav, but there's no Aseh. The Inyan Shnei HaGemoros, Talmud Bavli V'Yushalmi, who pirish Dibya Mishnayis, it's to explain the Mishnayis. Ubir Am Kriseha, Udvom Shnischachu, B'chol Beis Din uBeis Din Mimois Rabbeinu HaKodesh, V'ad Chibur HaGemora. When's Chibur HaGemora? Is Ravina Ravashi. U'mishnei HaGemoros, u'min HaToseftos, u'misifro v'sifri, mikulam Yizbayer, Ha'oso v'hamuto, hatomi v'ator, achiyu v'apoto, haposo v'akosher. Kimo shehetiku, ish mipi Moshe Rabbeinu. And who's the last matik? Ravina Ravashi. I'm skipping a little bit. Kmo shelo Beis Din, shalos ador lefi she'oso loso mehem. He only quotes the Lav. He doesn't quote the Aseh. V'chein mishpotim, v'dinim mufloim shelekiblu mimoshe, v'dono behem Beis Din shelos ador b'mida shator nidreshes behem, uposko isem ezikenim v'gomu shadin kachehu. There is a Lav also. But there's no Aseh, because the Aseh is only on Beis Din HaGadol. And Ravina Ravashi are not Beis Din HaGadol, they are Beis Din, the last Beis Din of Matik Yeshmur. Okay, so that's a very important point. But this would support certainly point one, that the Hakdama to Mishnah Torah, this part of Hakdama was certainly written prior to Mishnah Torah, and it reflects Sefer HaMitzvos. And the fact is that the Minyan HaKotzer is part of this Hakdama. And the Minyan HaKotzer certainly reflects Sefer HaMitzvos. However, Mishnah Torah can have different opinions, and it could be that the second half of the Akdama, after Minyan HaKotzer and after he discusses the Darabonans after Minyan HaKotzer, where he sets up the Svarim, the Yudalit Svarim, which he hasn't discussed in his plan in Akdama to Sefer HaMitzvos. He does not talk about Svarim. He only talks about halachas. From there on, that's Mishnah Torah. And here, this Hakdama is not a reflection of Mishnah Torah. And I'll tell you how. It's the Rambam Shita in Mishnah Torah is we do not distinguish between the Aseh of Kachol Yerucha, Aseh, and the Lois Aseh, Lois Aseh. You could probably look at the relationship between Lois Aseh and Kachol Yerucha as the Rambam in Shiur Shishi has a lav, the first category. He has a lav and Aseh, which are the mirror image of each other. They're bedova echad, except one's a lav and one's an Aseh. Similarly, the lav of Lois Aseh and the Aseh of Kachol Yerucha is basically an equivalency relationship, and it's just a mirror image, a Lois Aseh and Aseh, about the same topic. So therefore, the Rambam in Hilchos Mamrim, in Perik Aleph, Halacha Aleph and Beis, Beis Din HaGadol Yerushalayim, Hein Ika Torah Shaval Peh. He's talking about Beis Din HaGadol Yerushalayim. Then I'm skipping a little bit in going to Halacha Beis part of it. Kol Echad Me'elu, he has three categories. Ashlosh Devarim, Mitzvas Aseh Lishmoya Lohen. Who are the Lohen? It's the Beis Din HaGadol Yerushalayim, because that's what he's talking about. Haim, Ika, and Beis Din HaGadol Yerushalayim, he talks about in the plural. Haim, Ika HaGadol. Haim, Ika Torah Shaval Peh. And these Haim, it's Ika Torah Shaval Peh. It's Mitzvas Aseh Lishmoya Lohen. Okay, so that we understand that it's Beis Din HaGadol, and that's what he has over here. Then he adds, "Ve'oive al kol echad mehen, oive b'lois aseh. Ha'yoim al pi haTorah she'erucha el takonos v'chule v'chule." So it comes out that the Rambam Mishnah Torah, there's no category in terms of the lav of the Aseh of Beis Din HaMatik Yashmur. It's Beis Din HaGadol. And you find this also in the Protei Mitzvos. If you recall, the Protei Mitzvos are part of the Akdama after the Minyan HaKotzer, okay? Where he counts the Svarim and he's mefaret the Mitzvos according to the halachas. And there he says, in Hilchos Mamrim, La Aseh al pi haTorah she'omu lanu Beis Din HaGadol. That's in Hilchos Mamrim. That's the Aseh that we have here now. And then Beis Shlosu mi divreim. Who's divreim? Beis Din HaGadol. As we referred before. Shlasei sapi haTorah she'omu lanu Beis Din HaGadol shlosu mi divreim. Again, the Rambam Mishnah Torah has an equation. The lav leisosu and the Aseh Chosh Yerucha or Al Mishpota. She'omu Chotase. It's a mirror image. It's the same Beis Din HaGadol, and there's no difference. Okay, so that's a very important Hakdama, and it's clear where the Rambam is standing in all the different places. Okay, now next step. Let's do a little reading here, and let's just try to understand the words, and then we'll get to a little more lumdus. Okay? It's just the translation and interpretation. Okay? Lasos, okay, so it says, Lishmor, Lishomel, Beis Din HaGadol, V'lasos, L'snai Kapach, Kol Ma, She'itzavu Boy, Me'isa V'heta. Okay? Now, this period is a period, but it's also colon. Because now there's going to be a list of the various things that are subsumed under this Aseh. The ein hevdel bozer bein adobo. Now, I'm using Kapach's translation. You see, in Ibn Tibbon, it says sheyizberuhu, and I have no clue of what he's talking about. Okay, that their opinion is like that, but I don't know a category that should be a separate Aseh. The what he says, what Kapach says, shekibluhu, that means the Kabbalah, ish mipi ish mipi Moshe Rabbeinu, and we understand that category, and we find that category in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Mamre. So I think we can go with this category. At least we understand it. So one category is to disagree, the Aseh, to disagree with the Kabbalah of Beis Din HaGadol. And that's what he says in Perik Aleph Halacha Beis. Hari hu omer mikol adova sheyagidu lecho zo hakabbalah shekiblu ish mipi ish. So it comes out, as you remember, the Ram Halacha Aleph is talking about Beis Din HaGadol Yishalayim. So Beis Din HaGadol Yishalayim is the Bailim of Torah Sheba'al Peh, and you cannot disagree with them in terms of the Kabbalah of Ish Mipi Ish. The Rambam Pirush Mishnah also a similar thing. In Perik Yud Aleph Mishnah Beis, Umi Shiachlek Al Ma Shekiblu V'chulei Hu Zokei Mamre Oma Hashem Al Pi HaTorah Sheyerucha Ve'al HaMishpot V'chulei V'yoma Achar Kach L'Sosem En Adobo Shegidu L'chol Yom Nismo V'zehu Adobo HaMekubol Etzlom Ish Mipi Ish V'hu Sheyomu Kach Kibalnu Ulefikach Oma Yagidu She'ein Lehem B'kach El HaGoda. They're verbalizing that which they heard. Asher Yagidu L'cha Bilvad She'ein Yagidu L'cha Ma She'biyodam Min HaKabbalah. So that's the first category. Then the second category, O Hadovo Shiotziu Behekesh Min HaHekeshim Shatur Nidreshes Bohem. Now, this word Hekesh Min HaHekeshim, if I'm not mistaken, I have to check this out. In medieval Hebrew, they use the word Hekesh in a philosophical sense. It's an analytical interpretation of understanding of something. It's not the Midas HaTorah of Hekesh. It's an Arabic word. Kias is through logic or using the rationale of in analysis in order to come to conclusions. And that's what Kapach then translates, Shalom duhu bi'achas hamidas haTorah notoyos. It means midas haTorah, which Ibn Tibbon says anyway. Afterwards, behekesh min hakeshim, the derech ha'iyun, in order to understand the midas, to apply properly the midas haTorah in the dreshes behen. And this clearly, kias applies to all your gimel midas. And kias might be translated as darkei ha'iyun, ways of understanding, of logic, of coming to proper conclusions, analysis. In the Akadoma to the Rambam Pirush Mishnah, Kashemes Moshe, it says Kashemes all of Hashem, referring to Moshe. Ukvar Mosa liHoshua hapirushim shednitnu loy. V'osku behem Yoshua v'anshe doroi. V'kol ma shekibel mimenu hu or echod azkenim ein boy masu matan. We're not for machlekes. In Kabbalah, there's no machlekes. Umashelo shomu min anovi olav hashalom. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Yesh b'seifov masu matan. V'nilbud boy hadin b'darchei iyun b'sholish esrei hamida shenitn loy b'sinai. And this he calls kias. Ve'hein yud gimel midas shatoy nidreshes plan. So the first category is Kabbalah. There's a mitzvah called Shiur or HaMitzvos. Aseh. The second category is kias, is the application of Yud Gimel Midas Shatoy in the Dreshes plan. They're also the Bible on that. And if you disagree with them, there's the Aseh of the Chol Shiur. And this you see in Hilchos Mamim Perek Aleph Halacha Beis Aleph and Beis Beis Din HaGadol Yerushalayim Iketer Shabal Peh V'echod Dvorim. Now the second category, V'echod Dvorim Shalomdu Mipi Da'atom. It's their own Yishuv Hadas. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave over the Midas HaTorah that the Bala Mesera, the Matiki Hashmur, can be creative in halacha, and that which they create with the tools that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave, the Yud Gimel Midas Shatoy in the dresses, which Moshe Rabbeinu gave over to Yeshua, has a force of Gechol HaShiurucha on Mishpat Aseh. The Echod Dvorim Shelomdum Mipi Da'atom. Kach nire be'enai. In Kabbalah is kach shamanu, kach kibalnu. But here it's kach nire be'enai. It's mipi daiton, bi'achas min amidas shatoy in the dreshes plan. V'nire be'eneihem shadova ze kachu. And you understand, she's near b'devreim, you can have machlekes, and Kabbalah there's no machlekes. And that's what he says further. There's an Aseh in the says the Ram Shita is it's all the same. And then he says, V'ala mishpat asher yoimru, elu dvorim shilamdu, oison min adin bi'achas me'amidas shatoy nidreshes bled. But you find this in Pirush HaMishnah. In Sanhedrin Perek Yud Aleph. Umi shiachlok ama she. I'm just there's more there, but I'm using it as a to help a shit. Oh, shel oh lomdoi shalomdu bi'achas hamidas hu zokei mamre. Oma Hashem al pi haTorah shiurucha v'al hamishpot v'zeu adov sheloim denoisai bi'achas hamidas ve'vium elov ho'iyun tzivon Hashem la'ases al pi divreim. Vu amroi ta'aseh. Okay, now so the first category is Kabbalah. And the second category is Yud Gimel Midas. The first category is Kach Kibalnu, Kach Shamanu. And the second category is Kach Nir Be'enai, Lefi Daitom. Now, he has two other categories, or maybe maybe it's one with a permutation. Oh, Hadova Shiaskimo Lov Shu Yisera Torah. This is very difficult for me to understand. Kapach, at least I understand what he's talking about. He says, Kapach says, O adover she'eskimu olav kedei ligdo pirza. There's a problem, a pirza, and they're making a gezerah. Oh, lefi inyan min inyanim she'yeh daitem shu yosho u'shebo chizuk later. And here Kapach says, oh, behetem lamatzav mesuyim, there's a certain situation, mima sheyir lehem, shezeh nochoin, u'shezeh boy chizuk later. There's either a pirza or a ligdo pirza or chizuk later, which is what he calls in Hilchos Mamim. He puts them both together as one. So I assume these are and it's one long one, or maybe he learns it's two here, but it really comes to be the third category. Because in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Mamim, he says, lechazek hados ulesakein ha'olam. So I assume lechazek hados is chizuk laTorah, lesakein ha'olam is ligdo pirza, or something like that. I assume that there's some mirror of what he's talking about in Mishnah Torah. And that's the Rambam of the Mishnah Torah. The echad in Perek Aleph Halacha Beis Mamim, the echad dvorim she'osim siyog laTorah lefi ma shashot tzricha ve'en hagzeis hakodesh min hagos kol echad me'elu dvorim mitzvas say lishmor lahari oimer al pi haTorah sherucha elu atakodesh hagzeis min hagos sheyoru behem lo rabim kedei lachazek hados ulesaken ha'olam. Now, next point, okay? So now this was just in order to interpret the words. Frankly, the words are very difficult to interpret, especially in Tibet. However, let's move to the next step. The Rambam clearly over here has a mitzvah say to listen to the gzeres and takonos of Beis Din HaGadol. That's very clear. So l'chei, which should come out in the Sefer Mitzvas, that any takana which was post Beis Din HaGadol, it was only Beis Din Matiki Ashmur, there should be a lav leisoso, and an aseh, but no aseh, as reflected in the Akdama to Mishnah Torah. However, in Mishnah Torah proper, both in the Protei Mitzvos and Hilchos Mamrim, Protei Mitzvos, Hilchos Mamrim also, it's only Beis Din HaGadol. So we're confused. We don't understand the efficacy of any takana or gezerah after the culmination of Beis Din HaGadol through Ravina Avashi. What is mechayev us to listen to Talmud Bavli? Not kfira. I just, it's Torah and Nivelum and Itzorch. Now, also, if you recall, if brachos are based on loisosu, as the Gemara in Shabbos says, at least with the Rambam interprets the Gemara in Shabbos in the second parak, so you l'cheira, according to the Rambam Mishnah Torah, you can't imagine a bikas HaMitzvah on any takana post when there's no more Beis Din HaGadol. Now, that is according to his words here. And in Sherish Aleph, he also clearly says that the brachos are both because of the lav and the aseh. Or maybe the aseh by itself could be enough. Or the lav by itself could be enough in the case of matik yashmur. But Mishnah Torah, you're going to have a problem. In Mishnah Torah, in Perek Aleph, Hilchos Brachos Halacha Gimel, v'chein kol mitzvah she'em midivrei sefer, bein mitzvah she'i choiv midivreim, v'goy mikol megillah v'alokas nechan Shabbos, v'alokas nechanukah, bein mitzvah she'eino choiv v'goy erev v'netilas yadayim, mevorach al hakol kol nasiyosem mashekin shem mitzvosov v'tzivono la'asos. And then the Ram says, "Vehechon tzivo b'Torah shekosav bo asher yomu locho ta'aseh." The mechayiv of Birchas HaMitzvah depends upon the aseh, but the aseh in Mishnah Torah is also only on Beis Din HaGadol, as you recall. Nimse inyan advorim b'atzoten kachu. Asher kirishon b'mitzvot shetziva bohen lishmoy me'elu shetziva lahadlik ne'er shel Chanukah or likois es Megillah v'chein shakol mitzvah midivrei sefer. So this is very good that the Ram clearly says that the Birchas HaMitzvah is the aseh, not like the Gemara talks about the lav, but l'chayr could be the aseh, and they're all the same. It depends on Beis Din HaGadol. We just don't understand. Can there be a Birchas HaMitzvah? A mitzvah machadish after the culmination of Beis Din HaGadol. Now, here the next discussion is really Rav Chad Milsa. One of the achreinim here, one of the achreinim in Sherish Aleph, the Rambam writes the following: Omnam kosheli leforish sugik zo, because the Torah says it is Isur dabonon ye'over an loisaso. L'shitas haram v'sirei diyesh b'chol advon she'osa chacham misyog la'teira u'lefi ma she'ashot tzricha v'hein ha'gzeres ha'takonos ha'minhagim. Why does the Gemara say only a loisase in Tikshalom Matani? Go to cover a beach and take a loisase. Why does it loisase? Should be loisase vase? B'shovek aseh? That's his cash. So I could have said that the Khan of the Brisa is talking about the Targum of Rav Bashvo is Takonis Gzeres Matik Yashmur, where there's only a lav of Leisoso, and there's no Aseh Akchol Shirucha, and that's what it means. Shedoich Leisa Shebater, and it's only Leisa Aseh because there's no Aseh, as we just said. But that's only according to his words in Sefer Mitzvas and in Minyan HaKotzer and in the Hakdama to Mishnah Torah before Minyan HaKotzer. So then, once you do like that, these mitzvahs, certainly it's only kosel soso, and that's why the Gemara in Shabbos, when it talks shekir shum itself kosel soso, because it's only soso. In the case where it's a Beis Din Matik Yashmu. So, however, this does not help you in Mishnah Torah, where both the Aseh and the Lois Aseh are only on Beis Din HaGadol. And the Kunchis Divrei Seifrim in Simon Beis Ois Aleph, he works the Lavli Sasa is only in Beis Din HaGadol. And there's an Aseh and a Lois Aseh. So we don't know the Pshat, why is it God Lois Aseh, God the Kovar Abiyas, it should be an Aseh also. Okay, Beseder. However, interesting, all the achronim, including Briskerov in Perek Al Vichus Bochas Halacha Tezayin, they're not mechalik at all between what the Rambam says in Akdama and to what he says in Hilchos Mamrin proper, which to me is a little bit odd. I would not have said like that. Both the Rabbi Chanan and Briskerov. Now, next. Now, so it says, Hakol anachnu chayovim. All these categories, 4 categories, the 3 categories, lishmoya oisam v'lasoisei. V'lamod alpim. This lamod alpim is a very strange phrase. Kapach says, l'kaimoi v'lasoisei v'linog alpi devreim. That makes sense. Now, the next phrase is amazing. Loi na'avo mimenu. This seems to be in Aseh. Okay. And we have, so it means l'chayra that the kachol shirucha is not only a mitzvah Aseh, a kiyum Aseh, but it's an Aseh. Lo na'avo mimenu. Or as Kapach says, ubal na'avo aleim. Okay. Now, next. Interesting is like this. We have done a thorough search and a thorough discussion about a Sefer Mitzvos, Minyan HaKotzer, Mishnah Torah, Akdama to Mishnah Torah, Protei HaMitzvos, that Loisaso and Gechol HaShirucha include not only Kach Kibalnu and Kach Nira Be'enai, but also Gzeres V'Takonis. Okay. I just want to tell you one thing. Not only it includes it, but you look, the Ram Shita is the Zokin Mamre, because the Loisaso in Gzeres D'Rabbanan. He has a horor on chometz v'Pesach, a dovo sheish bo chometz D'Rabbanan, or all of the Rabbanan, dovo maybe they call us, as an afkaminik to sheisha, maybe they call us, and that's l'shitosai that is a leisoso on the Rabbanans. However, in Pirush HaMishnah, I was trying to find something. I did not find a mention of Gzeres and Takonis D'Rabbanan as far as Zochim Mama is concerned. The Rambam in Pirush HaMishnah, Perek Yiralef Mishnah Beis, Im hoye leBeis Din HaGadol, Kabbalah, b'yoisei adova, modiin lehem es HaKabbalah, sheish b'yodam. That's the first category. V'im lo hoye lehem gam b'zeh klum, hari elu donim b'midah she'taroniyos. Hayiduos etzlom, ad she'eskimu kulom orubon, she'adin kach u'modiin lehem. So that is Yud Midah she'Torah nidreshet. In Kabbalah is no machlekes. In Midas HaTorah is a Midah L'minyan. V'chayovim l'kayim oiseh hadover. V'kach kibalnu or kach nira be'enai. U'mishiachluk amashi kiblu oilomdu b'achas hamidas u'zokei mamre. Om Hashem al pi haTorah she'erucho ve'al hamishpot וזה הדובר שלהם נויסה באחס המידס, והביא מאליו, הוי עיון, ציוונו השם לעשס, על פי דבריהם. This is kias. והוא אומר תעשה. ואחר כך אומר לסוס בין הדובר שיגידו לכל ימין ושמאל, וזה הדובר מקובל אצלם. So this is גימול מידס and קבלה. איש מפי איש, והוא שאומר כך קיבלנו. ולפיכך אומר יגידו, שאין להם בכך אלא הגודל בלבד, שהם יגידו לכל מה שביודם מן הקבלה. ולא יזוכי ממרי וישחי מיסו, אלא עד שיורה הפך דייתם, בדבורים שנולדו יחס המידס, והפירושים בדובר שחיובם קורס. So it's either, the chiv zokhi mamre is either in a hero against them in midas hatera, with an asiyah, or a hero against them and asiyah against the Kabbalah. Or she hey soifel also lovely dekach, we're going shenechach aleim beilam ploni, im hu chayev beolo or eno chayev, or both from the tia mesuyim, im he chayeves beolo or eno chayeves. Hamachol is a soifel bo, the dover sheikh yomale is done a coast, she goes a chadish, shamakadish isha biois and apelos, b'chulei, it's enough communic to isha. However, Rabbi say, no mention of Gezeros v'takonos. So I'm wondering, maybe this idea of Gezeros v'takonos as a lav, which Ramban is chaylikol of b'tup mochilos, was a later idea which he developed in Sefer Mitzvas, the Minyan HaKotzer, and the Mishnah Torah. But in Pirush HaMishnah, it was not there. Now, this next thing I think will be amazing. This is just me trying to put everything together. And I'm very confused. Okay, just let's finish it. Okay, so that is the mitzvah say. See, here I understand. Aseh is the tzivur, okay? Where you just say by itself, it doesn't say anything because there's no tzivur. When you say Aseh, zo mitzvah. Okay, now there's one last sentence over here, which seems very innocuous. It says, "Ukvar his boy tis teva'aru, his ba'aru, mishpatei mitzvazo b'soif Sanhedrin." Okay, so you can make a comment that Soif Sanhedrin is the Ram Sheet and Pirush Mishnayis, that Hanechnokim is the last period. Okay, so now we can just close the Ram and say, everything's okay. I am very confused. The Rambam here is trying to tell you where in Talmud Bavli does it explain the mitzvah of ala mishpat ashiyom ulachot ta'aseh. Okay, and he says, Rabbi Isai, where you find it? You'll find it in Perek HaNichnot. So, frankly, I studied Perek HaNichnot, Rav, said Shiur on it, and I have no clue what the Ram is talking about. Perek HaNichnot is a perek which deals with Zokei Mamre. See, here we go back to the original comment is the relationship between Zokin Mamre and the Aseh of our Mishpah Sheyomu L'chot Aseh. Maybe, you could say he's alluding to Zokin Mamre that loy na'avo mimenu or bal yavon, that there's an Isa, and when one is a Zokin Mamre, not only does he violate the law of Leisaso, there's an Isa say. Could be. However, Rabbi San, is there a mention of the Isa Aseh of Zokin Mamre in Perek HaNechnokim? This Aseh of our Mishpah Sheyomu L'chot Aseh, is it mentioned there? To the best of my knowledge, no. You could you do know that Zokin Mamre is kosher to Leisaso because the lav shlit lasos is Beis Din. But you know nothing about the Aseh. It is true in the Gemara HaNechnokim that we learn out, according to some Tanoim, dinim of Zokin Mamre. And it could be discussion of tefillin, not tefillin. What we're talking about there? Peizayin of an aleph. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer al dova shikum midivei Torah u'piyushim midivei sefer. Rabbi Shimon Oimer afilu diktuk echem midikei sefer. The question is, on what is Zokin Mamre chayiv? Okay, so it says, my time with the Rameya. Goma dova. Ksi pol mechadova. Ksi bosam. Venelam dov mein ekol. Okay. So that l'chayr is nothing to do with anything. Okay. So, however, when you come to Rabbi Yehuda al pi ha'Torah she'yerucha, dike Torah yerucha, you're learning it out from the Aseh. Reb Shimon Oimer she'yagiv l'cho min hamokom hahu afilu koldahu. It's true. You learn out the subject of Zokin Mamre, and it's a drasha, but it doesn't say anything about the Aseh. So we have no clue. The assumption is that the dinim of our Mishpah Sheyomu L'cho, this mitzvah say, is explained in Perek HaNechnokim. So it means that the Aseh includes Hamra. And maybe Adarabah, we don't understand what Leisaso is according to his volume in Sefer HaMitzvos, because the Zokin Mamre is only Beis Din HaGadol, and the lav of Leisaso is on Bale Kabbalah, even Avinu Avashi. So a peculiar way of violating the lav is Zokin Mamre. And there's a peculiar Isa, I guess, even though we don't know anything about it, of Hamra in the Aseh. But even if you accept all this, I challenge you to find something about the Mitzvas Aseh of Asher Yomu L'chot Aseh in Perek HaNechnokim. What is the Ram talking about? And just another question, another point. Is it important for the Rambam? Why is he getting himself involved in this? Is it important for the Rambam to tell us the Ma'al Mekaymes? He says in that Dom is telling you Ma'al Mekaymes. Or maybe he's telling you that this mitzvah fills the paradigm of mitzvahs, like he says in the mitzvah sukkah, in Akdama, that is a mikvah, is a pasuk, which is the tzivur, which is the mitzvah, and this Torah Shabbat Peh, and that's the Baalei Masera. So he has to tell you where the Baalei Masera speak about it. So I would have said the Baalei Masera speak about it in the Sefer. Does he assume that Talmud Bavli, which is the quintessence of Kabbalah, all mitzvahs have to be discussed in Talmud Bavli in the Mishnayos? I'm just very confused. What does he want here? Why does he get Malil Tzalazes? Okay. So that is my discussion about the mitzvah of on Sanhedrin HaGadol of Lishmoy Velases, Mashi Tzavo Min HaYisrael. And I assume the Lishmoy Velases is before that. Lishmoy Velases is because it says Ashiyom L'cho Ta'aseh. That's why he says La'ases. And truth is, for Zokim Mamre, it's very important because the Hira is not enough for Zokim Mamre. You need a Aseh also. Okay, now let's do some work here on, let's get started next mitzvah. Kufayin Hey. A mitzvah, and this is a very strange mitzvah. I would have told you this is a mitzvah, minyan mitzvahs. You know, I would have heard many scoffers. But a mitzvah chomesh b'shiv mumeya, he should sivo lintois achre rabim. Achre rabim lahatos is a mitzvah, one of the Taryag mitzvahs. One of the Ramach mitzvahs Aseh. He should sivonu lintois achre rabim kishetipo machlokes bein hachachomim bedin midine haTorah kula. When there's a machlokes in dine haTorah, is achre rabim lahatos. V'chein nimshach v'noto, which the translation is very odd. That's Ibn Tibbon. Kapach has one word, v'chein nenahe, which makes sense, and we know we're talking the nahe, but din prati. It's not only a machlekes about dini atera, but Reuven and Shimon come in front of us, and they want to know the halacha k'mei. So we go achrei reiv in order to decide whether Shimon is right or Reuven is right. Gam kein bedin shebein Reuven v'Shimon derech moshel kishetipo machlekes bein dainei irom im Shimon hu achayiv or Reuven nimshach, which is better. Nimshach is neilech. Okay, neilech. That's kapach. Acha horoiv. Acharei rabim lahatos. Hochin acharoiv. V'omo yisale achrei rabim lahatos. Then he quotes a proof for this. What's the proof? Uvebeya omru ruba deraisa. So the word deraisa, he's learning it's a mitzvah. But Rabbeinu Shalom, the same Gemara in Baba Basra, which talks about ruba deraisa, talks about kurva deraisa. It's talking about a glarufa, kolov, reiv. Is someone going to say that since it says kolov deraisa, there's a mitzvah, minyan mitzvahs, laleches acha kolov? So I think that this is not so bad. I think what it means is we're learning that Ruba Deraisa Kol is also Deraisa. But you see, the Rambam learns it's a Dover Poshut that Lahatois is a Tzivui. And once you say it's a Deraisa, it means that this is Pshat and Posik. That you can learn from it. Once you say the Ruba Deraisa, it means Pshat and Posik. Acharab Lahatois. Leleches acharab, there's a mitzvah. But for kurva, there's no tzivui. So it is true, you can derive kurva from the Torah, but if you have no tzivui, you have no mitzvah. Okay, now, I just want to show you something. The next mitzvah is the mitzvah of limnei sheftim b'sheitin or limnei stayonim. We'll see exactly what translation is, okay? And also, l'cheira, that the dan, certainly in Mishnah Torah, in Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, in the Sanhedrin. So, why does the Rambam quote the mitzvah acharab nahatais after the mitzvah of al mishpah sheyomer l'chot Aseh? Why does he quote it to Sanhedrin? Because it applies also to Sanhedrin in terms of a mishpat bein Ruvain v'Shimon. He himself says explicitly. The first thing that I was thinking about is maybe the Ram Seder is important. And he's saying that the Ikar mitzvah is the Acharab Lahatis Kfis Dinei Torah. And the truth is, this could be supported by the Minyan HaKotzer. Because the Minyan HaKotzer, he says, Lintois achre rabim im tiye machlekes bein hasehedrin bedinin. So it's a question of kfiyas dinei Torah. And it's very explicit. And that's all it is. So maybe in Sefer Mitzvas that it really, the Ikar mitzvah is about Sanhedrin HaGadol, Kfiyas Dinei Torah. The interesting thing is in Protei HaMitzvos, in Hilchos Sanhedrin, there he has Acharab Lahates. Then the Rambam might have changed because he doesn't put the Acharab Lahates in Hilchos Mamrim in Kfiyas Dinei Torah. He puts it in Hilchos Sanhedrin in the Kfiyas of a Din Torah. They move in the Shim. It would apply to all of them. So we'll see about it, Mitzvah. At the moment, it seems that there will not be a Shiur next week. Mitzvah will pick up the week afterwards on Monday night, Bli Neder.